On this episode of The Rig Doctor, we're going to be working with local guitarist Zach Norman. Zach came to me with an issue of needing to be able to recreate not only several decades of hits, but also original music that he's produced with his band. In order to do that, he'd ordinarily need dozens of pedals to be able to recreate all these sounds, especially with some effects only being used on one or two songs a night. With that in mind, I recommended that we move toward a multi-effects device of some kind that allowed us to incorporate outboard analog pedals and integrate it within the multi-effects switcher itself. The logical choice was the Boss MS3. It combines the very best of Boss's technology and all the classic effects that they've had for modulation, reverb, delay, and more, and also allows you to combine 3 analog effects within it. And in this case, I recommend that Zach put all of his overdrive and distortion pedals there, since those are the hardest to recreate digitally. With that in mind, we were able to create a pedal board that not only met Zach's needs, but with the use of an expression pedal produced by Boss, you're able to get even more effects and have even greater control over feedback, over delay times, over modulation speeds, and much, much more. So let's check this thing out, let's meet Zach, and let's get this rig started. My name is Mason Marangella. I build rigs for the industry's top professionals. Now, I'm teaching guitarists how to build rigs like the pros, with DIY tips, easy mods, and all the tricks of the trade. I am the Rig Doctor. So we got the pedal train. We talked about it on the phone already a little bit, but the idea, what I think is super cool about the Boss MS3 is that it has all the multi-effects in essence that Boss has come out with. So super functional, but 3 loops. We're going to get rid of the reverb.
Yep.
And just have the steel string, tube screamer, and SP as far as the 3 loops that are internal.
Yep.
I want to get the weight of it so we can kind of Property Brothers style before and after this thing. I should have worn plaid like you, and then I could have been the real Property Brothers style. All right, so we're at 17 pounds 4 ounces, and let's just see kind of size-wise where we are. 24 by about 12 and a half. Our starting place. We know where we are, so we'll see how this goes. We're gonna try the layout now. With your permission, I'm gonna take everything off, and we'll see layout size, what we can get it down to reasonably.
Absolutely.
Final layout is guitar is going to go into the interface there up top. It's then going to come down here into the Mesa Boogie high wire, send out from there into the input of the Sonic Research Turbo Tuner. Then it's going to go into the input of the Boss MS3. MS3 is going to have 3 loops for the SP, the TS9, and the steel string. Then it's going to go back into the MS3, then return into the high wire, and the high wire is going to go back to the interface, and that's going to go out to the amp. Power supply is going to live underneath the steel string and Ibanez tube screamer, and then the interface is going to live underneath the SP and the tuner. We have all of our dimensions recorded here. We have 19 by 10 for the pedal board, and then 14 by 4 by 2 1/4 for the riser that's going to go underneath the pedals there in the second row. Then we'll have the expression pedal here feeding into the MS3, and that's going to use both the controller inputs there so that we can do anything we need to do within the MS3. Feeling good about this, Zach?
Feeling great about this. This is going to be much improved. I can feel it.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
For Zach's pedal board on the interface, the first thing that we're doing is just drilling out some holes on an existing enclosure. Normally, I might have somebody order an enclosure new and we would drill it out exactly for that particular application. Zach wanted to try to save where we could. I had some leftover enclosures from some old amp foot switches that would fit the bill in terms of the size for this particular interface. We also had the room to make this a stereo interface, which is pretty cool because the Boss MS3 has the capability to run in mono or stereo or as a splitter to run 2 amps simultaneously. So I made sure that I routed this in such a way where it allows us to have any of those options. It's got a shorted input, so anytime you unplug your guitar, you're not going to get any hum through the pedal board, and that'll short out the input jack. And then we have some nice Neutrik TRS jacks that are doing all the pass-throughs for the stereo in and out. Although all the buffering is occurring within the MS3, this is still allowing everything to easily feed through the interface, which just consolidates all the cables and makes it really easy to plug and play, where all you need is a guitar input, an amp out, and a power cable, and you're ready to go. And then if you wanted to go stereo, you just add one more additional cable out of the right output, which is the stereo out from there. For the layout, we did a pretty standard thing here. We had the MS3 kind of dictating the space that the riser was going to occupy. And from there, we added pedals on top of the riser. In this particular case, we went a little bit wider so that we could have the katana in the front row. And then from there, we added in the steel string, the tube screamer, and the SP compressor, as well as a tuner. It should be mentioned that you wouldn't need to add a tuner to this. However, Zach wanted one that was standalone and not using the one inside the MS3. If you really were committed to saving space, you could lose the onboard tuner, you could consolidate the riser slightly, and you could have it all contained within the MS3, and then you just have the expression pedal there to the right. But because Zach wanted it, we wanted to make sure we accommodated that. As always, we've hard mounted the riser into the pedal board. This is just so that it doesn't move, that it's not going anywhere, and with the PEM nuts that are already installed inside the riser, this just makes it a super sturdy connection to the board. It's not going to go anywhere, and it also just fits everything perfectly so that we have two pretty much identical width rows in the front and back row, and then we just have that expression pedal off to the side that serves two functions. For the power, we decided, as always, to use the True Tone. The True Tone is an incredibly reliable power supply. It's completely isolated and noise-free. And although this wasn't one of the prerequisites of Zach, it can go anywhere in the world, and it can work at any input voltage, and it will auto-sense whatever that voltage is and automatically make the calibrations necessary for your pedals to function optimally. Now, as always, I always work from one side of the pedal board toward the power supply. So I usually start furthest away, work toward the power supply, and have all the power cables running into the source. From there, I may remove the power supply to give myself some room to dress all those cables once I've determined the length. Sometimes I'll have enough room to leave the power supply on there. It just depends. Again, all the equipment that I've used up to this point is all linked in the description box, so you can use the exact same power connectors that I used. In addition to buying all the power cables and all those things, almost everything is available on Amazon, and if it's not available there, I will link to specific sites where it is available, so please be sure to check that out. For the audio section, we're using Mogami 2319. I find this to be the very best cable for the applications of pedal boards. It's incredibly neutral. If it errs on any side, it's on having a little bit extra mid-range maybe than what was there before. But I find that the drawbacks are well worth it. It's very easy to assemble. I think that it is the most controllable for what I go for in terms of a result that is completely neutral, as close to plugging the guitar directly into the amplifier. And I think that it's also extremely quiet. It's very well shielded, very well made, and you can pretty much get it anywhere affordably. So I'm using that throughout. We're using GLS audio plugs, and I'm hand soldering every plug on this one and just making it really, really simple. So if anybody ever had to troubleshoot this thing or open it up, it would be very clear where all the plugs are going and where they correspond to the pedals in the three loops. As we said in the MS3, there are three loops that we've chosen to use analog pedals in. That is the tube screamer, the steel string, and the SP compressor. So I've labeled all those cables so that we know exactly where they're going. And I just labeled them in accordance with the loop, so if any of those pedals ever change, it's not like the loop number won't match up to the pedal name on the opposite side, so everything is very clear to anybody who ever would tech this if it's somebody other than me. Other than the stuff going in the loops, we have everything nicely labeled. The expression pedal has expression 1 and 2 labeled on the side so that you know which cable is going to which expression input inside the MS3. This is just an organization that makes it really clear if you're ever coming back to the rig and you need to troubleshoot something, and it may have been a lot of time that elapsed in that point. So this just gives you a really clear sense of what goes where and where all the ins and outs are. As soon as I got finished with this board, I immediately plugged it in, and I was blown away by how great it sounded. And you know, we know that all the multi-effects can do all those great things where you're doing lots of different delays and lots of different reverbs and something really washy, but I just wanted to see how it would do with something that was just really organic and natural sounding, using a vintage amp and a vintage style guitar, and just trying to get some really core nice warm tone. So I invited my friend Jules Leahy over. He's a great local guitar player. You can follow him here on Instagram. And he just came by and just blew me away. Just kind of played some nice sort of bluesy stuff, kind of added in some like nice little Derek Trucks type lick, even though he's not using a slide. And it just really blew me away. So check out these tones that he was able to get out of it. And we're really just using a little bit of reverb, none from the amp, just from the MS3, a little tiny bit of slap delay, and then just the steel string, and every once in a while we'll bring in the tube screamer, and we've got that all preset through the MS3 because, again, we can bring in any loops as we desire just by way of the way that the MS3 is set up. So let's check that out. So at this point, we're completely done. I've had Jules give it a nice run through for me, and I was just so blown away by how organic and analog this thing sounds, even though it's essentially a miniature digital modeler. But we've put those 3 analog pedals in there, and that's just picked up where a lot of the digital modelers fall short. Some of them do a really great job at doing delays and reverb and modulation, but some of them really fail when it comes to really trying to reenact an analog drive sound. So by having the best of both worlds, we were really able to nail it, and I think that's completely clear from what Jules played. So with this fully tested and vetted by Jules and me, I'm going to go ahead and call up Zach, and I really look forward to what his impressions are. I can't wait to see what he thinks.
There he is. Zeke's bringing you the welcome wagon.
Best friends for life.
How you doing?
Doing great, man. How are you? Hey, I know how you're doing.
All right. Come on. Let's head to the back.
It feels better. I don't know. It feels, first of all, I love the look. I love the setup. It just looks so clean, so nice. I'm just so blown away how like perfect the size is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like perfect. You know, I mean, I was like, okay, we're gonna be close, but I mean, it's perfect. And I can still, even if I want to, because this katana has a pop out, a pull boost, it looks like I can still do that, which is kind of cool. I love it. Love the look, love the size. I haven't even lifted it up, but I'm sure it weighs less, a little bit. It's just, I mean, what else do you need on a board at this point? You know, this is truly like, it's got everything I could ever need at this point, and it's so practical now for really any gig, you know? I feel like I'm ready to like actually jump in and learn this thing, and before I was always sort of overwhelmed with cables everywhere and not really knowing what was going where. One of the things that's great about this whole setup is like, I have one song or something where I play with tremolo. I don't need a box for that, you know? It's like I got all I need right there, you know? And it's like safe space, safe weight. I really have the best of both worlds, and then I have some analog style pedals and boosters, and I have some digital effects built in. And then you loop it all together, and you can get different loops and change the order of things in the system too, which is pretty cool. This really is the future for me, and I think the future for a lot of guitar players and where we're going. But being able to combine the best of both worlds, these analog pedals with these digital effects, and create like a system here that, you know, is, like we were saying, smaller than my pedal train that I had before this, lighter than my pedal train, more portable, more reliable, and I've been a purist for years, and I've, you know, started making the change because it really is, it's the future.
£15, 1 ounce. Incredible. Let's also just take the measurements. 19, by 10. So 19 by 10, let's call it 15 pounds. That's pretty travelable.
That's works for me.
17 pounds, 4 ounces. 24 by about 12 and a half.
To have all that functionality for 15 pounds, it's pretty awesome. And this is the way to go.
We'll take it. 15 pounds, 1 ounce of tone. Well, I feel like we really nailed the goal. The purpose of having an effect like the MS3 is to be able to capture a lot of ground and be able to have a super compact, pedal board friendly switcher in addition to having something that's a multi-effect. And I really think the optimal way to use this is by putting in all of your analog devices that are like distortion and overdrive oriented, and then having all the rest of the stuff happen inside the MS3, and if you want, even adding an expression pedal so you can get the most mileage out of all the different applications that the MS3 provides. Now, the one thing that I found incredibly cool about this is the idea that you could just swap around whatever those 3 analog, drive, and overdrive pedals are and distortion pedals are, and you could really make this fit a ton of different styles if you wanted. You could of course choose a low, medium, and high gain sort of pedal and be able to cover a lot of ground, but you could also really specify. If you wanted to go into a metal band, you might choose really high gain distortions to go in front of a clean M, and those would be your 3 analog drive pedals that would fit in those 3 loops. Or if you're doing more of an R&B gig, you might choose something like a compressor, maybe a lighter analog drive, and maybe something that's a little bit heavier but not too heavy. So you can really just mix and match a lot of different pedals. And I left all these cables to be able to fit pretty much any jack orientation for both the power and the audio. So if Zach ever changed up what he was doing and he wanted to go into a metal band, he could change those 3 pedals on the top and really get a lot of different tones and really get specific on things that he wanted. So I can't see there being any condition where this wouldn't work in a gigging context, especially if you're traveling internationally, or you just need to have something small because you have limited space, or you're living in an apartment, or you're just playing small stages. I think that this could be really, really useful. But I have to say, for the money and the value and the ease of use, the MS3 is by far one of my top contenders. It takes 9 volts, really easy to power. You get the 3 analog loops, everything's programmable. You can put any pedal in any order, and I think that that's pretty amazing. So if you like what you saw today, please go ahead and check out the description. I have links for everything that we used, including the MS3 and all the parts and accessories that were used. And if you like this and you want to see more like this, please do the things like, subscribe, leave us a comment. All those things really help us and allow us to continue putting out new content on this channel. And if you do subscribe, make sure you hit the bell icon. That tells you when new stuff is out, so you stay up to date on all the latest stuff from the Rig Doctor and more. I'm Mason, the Rig Doctor. Thank you again for watching. Until next time, adios.